specialize in music most people hate. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out our Facebook page, Instagram, and our website. Let us share the noise with you.
Yo, this is John from Noise Dosage Media, and this episode is brought to you by Begrudgingly Benny. Interested in putting something horrific and grotesque on your next piece of merch? Benny is tucked away in the fiery depths of COVID quarantine, blasting the filthiest of old school death metal and drawing hideous creatures that he is waiting for you to adopt. Go over to Instagram and follow at BegrudginglyBenny and contact him if you would like some really weird original art for your band or label. Super professional, highly recommended.
All right, so background about me that not a lot of people know is I grew up on a big dairy farm. Music was the outlet away from cows, I guess, cows and field work. And I went to FLCC for a full 2 years to get my associates in science for music recording technology. Since then, I have done some bigger name people. The only one I can really name is Molly Hatchet, and I've done some smaller name people. But right now, I am in the middle of doing stuff for In the Shadows of Giants full-length album, which is to come out hopefully sometime this year. I hope.
Hopefully.
This whole COVID thing is kind of screwing with our schedule. We were a full month ahead of schedule, and now we're not quite behind yet, but another week or so here.
Right. Did you end up finishing that song that I did some video for?
Yeah, so I mean we've only got 2 songs left on drums to record. One of them being the intro to the second half of the album. Yes, we have to break it into halves, and then the last song is kind of our magnum opus to end the album. For those of you that don't know, and I can't go into details about what the story is about, but the first album is a concept album. So it's got the big long prog epics on it, and the last song, I think the last time we arranged it in pre-production work was just shy of 20 minutes.
Yeah, you've got long songs. Like, what's the shortest song that you have?
The shortest song we've got, actually is I think it just clocks in under 8 minutes.
Right. Now who in the band actually like enforces that?
So the long songs were just always naturally there. A little bit background about the band. I am not an original nor a founding member of the band. Matt Berry, I remember him talking about it back in college, that he wanted to get something like this together, and I was going to play bass for him, and he sent me at the time a very primitive version of a song, which would actually get split into the second song on the album, and then there's little motifs in that we stole from it that are in the final song of the album. So that, we've covered the basis of that whole song that he showed me 5 years ago now, I think.
Talk to me about your live setup. I know that you guys joke around about only bringing your modelers, your Kempers, Axe-Fx, and like that separates you guys from a lot of bands because they're hauling 4x12s and big tube amps, and I guess I'm guilty of that myself.
All right, so at our first few shows, Matt and I both, we had tubes. Now, I was running a kind of a hybrid rig. So the first few shows that anyone ever saw us at, I was using my Mesa Boogie Triaxis, and that was my tone for everything. But then I was using the Axe effects just solely for effects, and then that would go um, out of the Axe effects into a Mesa Boogie 290 power amp and stereo two Mesa. You're gonna hear that a lot. Two Mesa Boogie 112 cabinets in stereo, and then Matt was using a Laney Ironheart head through an Orange 412, and
It sounds pretty heavy from here, like weight wise. I'm not talking tone.
yeah. So the Gator case for my stuff itself with all of the rack mount gear, I'm willing to bet probably weighed anywhere between 60 and 70 pounds, just because the 290 power amps is literally two amplifiers in one box.
Yeah.
Two tube amps in one box. That entire rig had a total of 17 tubes in it between the Triaxis and the 290. So
Yeah.
it,
My angle, my angle, dude, it's horrible, man. Like, I live in an apartment that you got to go straight up the stairs to, get to my room. And hauling that thing back and forth is hell.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
horrible.
I don't miss that at the time. I mean, same thing. We were all having to go up and down stairs to either get in and out of a practice space, or, to practice at home. So I bought an Axe FX 2 XL Plus. I wasn't quite ready to jump to the Axe FX 3. I'm now wishing that I did.
Right.
But Matt had already bought a Kemper at the time, by October, and played a show with it. And I messed around with this Kemper, and I just, the Kemper is not for me. I think
Right.
the Axe FX is a little bit better. So that's what I've stuck with. And we both run the modelers through cab sims direct out to the front of the house, and we kind of just tell the front of house guy how we want it mixed. And I think it's turned out really good. I mean, we walk on stage, Jeff usually has his drum kit set up out in the kind of lobby area, so we help him put his drum kit up on the stage, and then we just bring one Gator case that's got a power conditioner and our two modelers
That's
in it.
it.
And
That's it.
yeah, that's it. I mean, we're set up and sound checked in 10 minutes.
If you had an opportunity to have somebody be a guest on one of your band songs, who would it be?
Oh, from the scene or just at all?
Like dead or alive, anybody.
David Gilmour.
David Gilmour.
David Gilmour.
Hands down.
Hands down.
What would be your second choice, other than Petrucci?
Nolly Get Good on bass.
Who is that again?
He's a bass player from Periphery.
Yeah, I know Nolly, but I didn't know his last name. Yeah, he's a fucking tank.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a gnarly bass tone. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this will make fun of me because I really do like Periphery a lot.
I do too. Icarus lives, man. Icarus lives.
Yeah, I mean, it was revolutionary stuff when it came out. I liked how they've kind of stayed true to themselves and allowed their music to evolve and not just stay to like the strict gent, almost some stuff unlistenable because they overrode it, and vocals didn't sit in well, like stuff that was on that first album. But when Periphery 2 came out, I actually listened to Periphery 2 before I listened to Periphery 1, because I was working at a local music store in Perry, New York, and I was working with a guy, and he gave me a bunch of CDs, and this guy, he got me into Meshuggah, he got me into Periphery, he gave me a CD from, I don't know if these guys are around anymore, but they're called The Misery. They have an album that's called Hive and Mutation. That's probably one of my favorite death metal albums of all time.
Oh shit!
And that says a lot, because I don't listen to a lot of death metal, but I can listen to that record
Right.
through and through, and that is through and through death metal.
Right. And yeah, that was one of my questions, because like every time we talk, I always think to myself, I'm like, this guy's super talented, but like how does he, like, without listening to the type of music that you play, like it's kind of hard to believe that like you do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
I mean, so one of my first impressionable music experiences I ever had was my dad was in this band with a few other guys, and it was a true garage band. So I remember sitting in my dad's boat in the garage and listening to him practice. And there's nowhere else to sit. There's too much other stuff around. So we were just chilling in the boat on the trailer. And the guitar player, who is my cousin's husband, he started playing the solo for Bark at the Moon by Ozzy. And it was just like so impressionable on me, I guess. And that, I was real young.
that's super funny, because the dudes in Human Delusion that I talked to yesterday, the drummer said, I gotta be honest with you, the real reason why I started was Iron Man. And yeah, it's ironic.
Yeah, I mean, so music was always in our household, always. I played in my dad's bar band from the time I was 14 to all the way up until after they moved to Tennessee. But it wasn't like traditional music we would listen to. It was a lot of Pink Floyd. It was a lot of Rush.
Right. That's what I actually started listening to myself.
Yeah.
And then I got into like thrash metal, and then that got me into like shitty ass, like, that phase type music, and then I got into death metal.
I remember in 8th grade, all I listened to was Cannibal Corpse, and I hear the intro riff to Hammer Smash Face, and it brings back so much bad memories. So I don't really listen to death metal anymore. I will still listen to, on occasion, a lot of the old Metallica and Megadeth stuff. Just because it's straightforward. You know what you're going to listen to. I think the tones on the early thrash albums are probably some of the most raw distortion tones. And me being a Mesa Boogie guy, I mean, I can listen to Master of Puppets and Justice for All, really anything up until Saint Anger, and then afterward,
Come on, man, dude, you love that album. Stop that.
I don't know who convinced Metallica it'd be a good idea not to have Kirk Hammett play a single fucking solo on an album. Whoever's idea that was should have lost their job. You're Metallica, but you're not going to play any solos on this album. Have fun.
So you're probably gonna say something back to me about this, saying what the hell, but so to this day, my favorite Metallica album is Death Magnetic.
I'm not going to say anything to that, and the reason why is Death Magnetic was one of the first albums I ever bought with my own money, and All Nightmare Long used to get played on repeat at my house all the time. I mean, that album is such a better album than what I think people give it credit for. Especially
dude, it's like
Anger.
I think to be honest with you, Death Magnetic, like, it should get more credit. Like nobody listens to that album, and if you even talk about it, people are like, "What? What album is that?"
Yeah, The Unforgiven 3 is such an underrated song too.
Right. My song was The Day That Never Comes. Like that intro is just,
Yeah,
I don't know.
you know, that's another one to talk about. I remember, let's see, what year did that come out? 2008.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was in 5th or 6th grade, I think, when that came out, and I remember listening to the song Cyanide with just the bass and the drum grooving and thinking that was like the most brutally heavy bass and drum groove. Come to find other things later on, but I mean, at the time, that was it for me, right? that
Right.
that groove.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one album that was like, my high school go-to album. There's just something about it. But here we go. If your band toured out of state, would you still run the live rig that you do currently?
Yes, because the rig that we run currently is probably the most tour efficient rig
Right.
there is.
Yeah, for sure.
It saves on space. I mean, we've talked about it. The rig that we have can fit in the back of
TC's car.
Yeah, I mean, it could fit in the back of anything. You know, Jeff's drums, they can all sit on top of each other. He has a rack that comes apart, a cymbal bag. I tour with, I come to every show with 2 guitars. I always have, and then anyone was at our first show can see why, because halfway through our second song at our first show, the batteries died in one of my guitar, because the first show playing out with these guitars, I didn't think that, hey, maybe you should, change the batteries in them.
Yo,
And,
yeah, I want to hear some funny ass stories from you, like show stuff, and I'll tell you some of mine.
okay, so our first show was probably the best and the worst impression of us coming right out of the gates, because the album is dark. We're playing the very first song, which is essentially like the overture to this story, is, if you want to talk about it in classical terms. So it's dark. The album starts with A Violent Calm, which is a single that we released. We did re-record it for the album, to make it have the same sonic clarity as what the rest of the album. So anyone who's listened to Violent Calm, you know how that song starts. It starts between 2 chords, and they're very dark, and then we come in on a blast. Now, as Jeff's blasting at our first show, he's going away with the double kick, and one of his beaters comes out of the thing, like a minute into our first song at our very first show, and we had to stop. And we started over right where the blast came back in, and then the first song, it goes well, and then halfway through the second song, I hear my guitar cutting in and out, and I start freaking out, like, did I lose a tube? Did the Axe effects go down? Is it my cable? And then I said, I haven't got time to screw with this, and I just unplugged my guitar and grabbed my other one, hoping that something would change. Maybe it was the jack, I don't know. And I plugged it in, and the guitar, like, is just screaming loud, and because I turned it up just to try to get through to a part where we could, I could change guitars, because we do have mellow parts in our songs, where I don't play. So just to get me up through to that next section where I don't play. I changed guitars. I plugged my guitar in, and it instantly starts feeding back, and I had to turn everything back down to where I had it. I'm sure the sound guy really, really liked that.
Where was that at?
California Brew House. That was actually almost a year ago. April 8th of 2019 was our first show.
Oh, shoot.
So we've been playing out for basically a year now.
So a funny story for, well, same place that you played at, California Brew House. So I think you know this. I've been filling in for TC's other band and stuff.
Yep.
And, you know, probably the worst show I've ever played in my whole life. So my Agile, it's a baritone guitar.
Yep.
And my Wolfgang is obviously not a baritone guitar. And it's like super, it's a huge difference. Let's put it that. It's like playing a bass versus a guitar. And I've never played that set on a baritone. And I forgot my Allen wrench. And the first chord I played in their set, the low string broke right off. And I had to pick up that guitar and attempt to play it. Holy shit, man. I think I shredded it. Like, I don't remember playing like half the set, right?
Right.
I don't know what happened, but it was just awkward. You know what I mean? Like, if you're used to playing on a guitar, or you're used to playing through your axe effects, and then you start playing a solid state, it's totally different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I practice at home, I practice through a tube head. But yeah, I mean, you can't get so used to one thing, then suddenly have to adapt in front of people. I mean,
oh my God.
Our last show, which was like on this, the second week of December, it was at the Bug Jar. We had flipped the units around in the Gator case, or I flipped the units around in my Gator case because we were coming from separate locations, so we didn't have just one Gator case. I flipped the units around to make it so more air flowed, so nothing got hot. And because of that, I had the power supply for my foot controller out front was plugged in a weird way, and the vibrations, it kept falling out of the plug. And this is just the beginning of the horror story of this show. Like, I played fine, but it just that was just the beginning of the horror story of this show. So we're going along. I go to change patches, and everything's dark in front of me, so it's not getting power. So I wait. I just deal with the patch that I'm on. Not that it was a bad one. It's just not the one that I wanted. And
right.
I wait until we're at a part where I'm not playing, and I go back and plug it back in, and everything's fine for another 10 minutes or so. And then the damn thing wiggles out again. And finally, TC out in the crowd sees I'm frustrated and comes on stage, and I just tell him,
oh yeah, I was at that show.
Yeah,
I was at that show.
So he's on stage, and he's just holding it in place for me so we could get through the rest of the set. And this past year, all we played live was the same 4 songs, because the same 4 songs was 45 minutes. And at the end of the very last song, I have a long cascading guitar solo, and I get 3 notes into this guitar solo, and at some point the strings came out of tune. Come to find out later, I wanted to change strings the day before the show, and the only strings that were in the area, because we play in a lower tuning, so we needed some thicker gauge strings. And
What tuning do you guys play in?
so starting from
Actually,
the lowest string on the 7 string, it goes G sharp, D sharp, G sharp, C sharp, F sharp, A sharp, and then D sharp. So it's basically drop A, but a half step down is what
oh
it is.
shit.
So it's a little bit lower. So I get the thicker strings, but they were kind of a cheap brand. And what had
Right.
happened was the wrap down by the ball of the string had started coming undone. And so anytime I bent the string or played on it, more of the wrap would come off, and it just kept detuning and detuning, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I'm in the middle of this solo trying to play this big, long, epic solo that I had written for the epic ending of the first half of the album, or the first half of this story. And
Oh
it just
no.
keeps coming out of tune. So finally I just do what any guy would revert to and just dive bombs and playing on strings that were staying in tune. And it was terrible because that solo is probably the one that I'm most proud of, and it pissed me off that I couldn't play it for people because I the only strings available to me were cheap strings. So
Right.
we'll never use those strings again. For those of you who are curious, we use SIT strings. We have since the beginning. At the music store that I work at, that I manage, we have a great relationship with SIT strings, and they actually custom make our strings for us, to accommodate the proper tension for the tuning and scale lengths of each of our guitars.
Oh shit.
But we,
Yeah, I used to use SIT when I was starting out.
yeah, I mean they're an amazing string. I highly recommend that anyone use them.
To be honest with you, I've been using Diodarios because for some reason I like the wound third.
Yeah,
But just playing in that lower tuning, like it just gives it more beef. And like when I go to Guitar Center, for example, like you go and look for a pack of strings that has a wound third, you won't be able to find it.
no, and actually, SIT, their blue pack, which is a drop tune pack, does come with a wound G string. Um,
Right.
I tried playing with the wound G string. I messed around with it. I bend too much to really use a wound G string because it shreds my finger.
Right. Right. My it's kind of funny because I do drop A and drop G, and I think yeah. So the tens I use for drop A, and the 13s or the 12s I use for drop G. And like people look at me and they're like, "What are you talking about, dude?" And it works. I like it. I like that flexibility.
Yeah, I mean the wow, drop G is down there. I mean it's just a half step lower than what we use, but I mean you're on a 6 string, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's down there for a 6 string, but then again you're a baritone.
No, I'm actually not. I just bought a Jackson 1991 black, like dinky. It's sick. It's probably the best guitar I've ever had.
Really?
Surprisingly, like my Wolfgang is cool, but it doesn't play as good.
Yeah, the
So
early 90s was a good time for Jackson. I used to have an early 90s Jackson Rhodes. I wish I didn't get rid of it, but that was a good time for Jackson. It was the early 90s.
yeah. Let's see here. Let's see if I get any more questions here. I got like 3 more for you.
Okay.
Um, who could? Nah, that's kind of a boring question. What have you been listening to recently? And I know you like Pink Floyd a lot, and I was curious on what you think of the album Animals, because like that is one of my favorite albums since I was a kid.
Okay, so the first question: what have I been listening to recently? I've been listening
Yeah.
to um, a band called Southern Empire.
Okay.
They're a progressive uh, band, but they're not progressive like Dream Theater or Between the Buried and Me or anything like that. They're prog rock, and they do the epic stuff too. Um,
Right.
I've been listening to those guys a lot. They've got 2 albums out, um, and it's pretty. I think it's pretty innovative stuff. What they're doing. Um,
Right.
from there, I've been listening to um, Dream Theater, of course. Um,
How about you were talking about Between the Buried and Me? Do you actually listen to them or no?
yeah, I listen to them a lot. Um,
What album in specific?
I
Like, what's your
I flip
favorite?
flop between Colors and both of the Parallax um, albums, Parallax 1 and 2. But
Okay.
Coma Elliptic. Um, if I want to
Yeah,
listen,
that's a good
it is
album.
a good album. It's not necessarily their heaviest, and sometimes I just want to listen to something that's kind of not in your face 100% of the time.
Right. And they do a super good job at that.
Yeah. So Between the Buried and Me was another one of those bands that the guy I was working with got me into. Um,
Yeah, The Great Misdirect. I don't know if you probably talked to Alex in my other band. Um, maybe, I don't know. But he's huge into them, and he actually dragged me out to see them, and I was like, "Nah, man. I mean, they're good, but like when you see them live, it's like a whole different animal."
I wish I went and saw them the last time they were around. I do. I wish I would have just taken the night off from work and just have gone and seen them. Um,
So have you seen them before,
I
like
have not
ever?
seen them.
Holy crap, dude, you're missing out.
I know BT Bam and Periphery and the Contortionists. They were all on the same
Yeah.
bill, and I was like,
Yeah, I saw it. That was the show I went to in Toronto. Um, yeah, the Contortion is sweet too.
yeah, they really are.
I've seen them twice, and the first time I actually kind of saw them, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really a fan. Like I saw them with Carnifex, like they didn't fit in at all, and this was like 3 or 4 years ago. But now looking back, like seeing their new stuff, like I'm a fan, you know. So
They do their rediscovered stuff, and I actually almost enjoy that more than their um I guess non-rediscovered stuff. The original releases.
right.
So
Yeah, Intuition. That's a good song, man.
yeah,
I
Intuition.
love that.
Language rediscovered is always probably going to be my favorite thing they ever did. Um,
Yeah. I don't to be honest with you, I don't know how they like what their rig is like. I haven't really looked into it. But
they,
I
they
want to know how they get those cleans.
they're both guitar players in that band are Mesa artists.
Oh shoot, really?
Yeah, so chalk another win for the Mesa people.
They win again. They win again.
They win.
I got my freaking cab for like $500 for a 4x12.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a good cab. I obviously can't play it in my apartment, so
Right?
um favorite local band.
Oh, Sastruga.